This is Liam Heery, who recently undertook the ARC transatlantic yacht race, and he's here to tell us a little bit of his experiences, which will hopefully help you in developing your project plan. So, Liam, first question, why did you do it?
Why did I do it? I suppose it's one of those things that became an opportunity of a lifetime that just arose. I am a sailor myself and have sailed for years, and I suppose it's just one of those lifetime challenges that you think about, that when it gets presented to you, you jump at it, and I jumped at it.
All right. So tell us a little bit about the event itself. How big is it?
The ARC stands for Atlantic Rally for Cruisers, yeah, and it starts at Las Palmas in the Canaries and goes across to St. Lucia. It's an annual event that's organised for normal cruising yachts who are not on the ocean all of the time, and people who want to maybe challenge themselves and do an ocean crossing in safety with numbers.
So when you say cruising yachts, what size is that?
A cruising yacht can be anything from that you can sleep on. So you can go from anything from 15, 16 foot right up to 100 foot. On average though, the yachts on the crossing would probably have been around about 50 foot. That would be the normal average cruising size. The smallest yacht on the crossing was a 23-foot sloop, which was tiny. Absolutely tiny. But 2 guys, you couldn't even stand up inside. But that would be unusual. Our boat was a 41-foot Beneteau Celebration, so quite a nice cruising boat. Most cruising boats are designed not to race. They're designed for comfort, and so therefore most people who cruise on them are just cruising maybe only on occasionally overnight rather than on extended periods.
All right. So how many people were in your...
In our boat there was 6 of us on crew. There was 5 men and 1 woman. On average ages ranged from, my brother was the oldest, he's in his late 50s. I'm about to turn 50. One of the other guys was in his mid-40s, a couple of guys in their mid-30s, and one other person in their late 20s. So quite a range of ages. On the event itself, through the ARC boats, and there was 240 yachts, there were some people who had their families with them. And so the youngest person in the whole thing was a baby of something like about 6 months.
Wow. Get them started early.
That's right.
So, of the people on your boat, how many would consider themselves to be professional sailors as opposed to just recreational?
Yeah, well, none of us are professional sailors. We're all recreational. Probably in the sense of more recreational than others, in the sense that all of us race on a regular basis. Me here in Sydney and the others all in Ireland. But in terms of experience, nobody had ever done, of any of us, nobody had ever done an ocean crossing. All of us had done sea miles, but either around continental Europe or in my case around Australia, but not in terms of a long-term ocean crossing.
So what was the longest period of time that you've been to?
In my case, the longest seagoing crossing was to Lord Howe Island, and that was only 3 nights of 4 days. The others would all have had similar things. In Europe, you're going from a European country to, from France to England or England to Ireland. You're never at sea for more than 3 or 4 days at a time. So the longest stretch that they had in the delivery of the boat was probably about 5 days.
All right. So then, for this cruise, how long were you at sea?
The actual event itself, it took us 18.5 days from start to finish. So quite significantly longer. So your planning and all of that is completely different in the sense of longevity when you start looking at food, resources, boat and the supplies and equipment and catering for breakages and all that type of thing.
All right, and I'd like to dig into that in more detail in just a moment, but how did you find 6 people cramped up on a little 41 foot yacht for 18 and a half days?
Yeah, 18 and a half days was enough. But at the same time, if it had taken us maybe 4 weeks, we would have been okay as well. We got on very well as a combined crew. A lot of the interaction between people came back to the jobs that we individually had and the variety of jobs and the rotation of jobs. So the crew management was critical, and the way that we managed the crew turned out to be perfect in terms of giving us the required motivation and rest and work periods, and working with other members of the crew at different times as well. So you were never stuck with one person all of the time, which helped things.
Right, and was that whole rotation worked out beforehand?
Yeah, that was all part of the planning process. So in a couple of the delivery legs that they had made with the boat prior to commencing the race, they had trialled a number of different watch systems, being the number of hours that you're on watch at any one time, to come up with what they felt was the most appropriate for what we were going to be doing. So that's what we ended up with.
Right, and is there a magic number?
Well, in our case, the magic number was that we had the watch system was from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. And in that period then there were 4 watches of 3 hours duration each, with 2 people on watch at any one time. Because there were 6 of us on rotation, that meant that there was one group had what we call the bookend watches, in other words from 8 to 11 and from 5 to 8, and that rotated all the time, or at least each day. But what that meant was that from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. there was nobody in particular that was on watch on the boat. It was a case of whoever wanted to, was up on deck. So it's quite.
So what was your main communication with
the outside world? We had radio. We had a HF, high frequency radio, as well as a sat phone. The sat phone we used and kept for kind of more what we called, in our case was emergency calls, but not emergency in the sense of being in danger, mainly to receive weather reports from some people back in Ireland who were helping us with weather management. The HF radio was used for boat-to-boat communications, and the way that the ARC managed the fleet, which comes back to the safety in numbers, is that they had boats in groupings, and that group would submit their position on a daily basis, which would then, from a group point of view, get submitted back to headquarters in Cowes in England, so that the whole fleet position could be plotted.
Well, Liam, thank you very much for your time and for sharing some of your experiences. I'm sure it will be of great value to the students. So thank you.
You're welcome.